Hey everyone, I'm Margaret Helthaler, lead faculty for graphic design. Now today we're going to review some best practices for video feedback. As you probably know, faculty are now expected to provide each student with audio-video comments in discussion threads or gradebook feedback at least once each course week or milestone. We're going to discuss the best methods for recording audio-video content, then we'll consider workflow, including the criteria for quality feedback. We'll take a look at how to embed video comments, and we'll conclude with some additional considerations. Let's begin with the best way to capture video content. Now, I found the free version of Screencast-O-Matic offers a great solution. You can go to screencast-o-matic.com/download to download the app. Then you just need to launch the app each time you wish to record. You can select the area on the screen you wish to record, and you can save the recording to your desktop or export it to YouTube. We'll discuss these options in more detail in just a minute. Snagit is another great option, but the education version does cost around $30. Now I'm happy with Screencast-O-Matic, so I decided not to shell out the $30. The capture software provided in the classroom will also get the job done. However, the process adds a couple of extra steps to the workflow. It can be a little clunky, so we're not going to focus on that so much. Now, it's up to you to decide which software you're most comfortable with, so I would encourage you to kind of explore all of the options and see what works best. Whichever application you choose, just be sure you record at a reasonable size and save the video file in MP4 format. Now, I tend to record in full screen mode on my laptop, but I wouldn't try this on my large monitor. Basically, you want the recording area to be about the size of a 13-inch laptop screen so students can see some details if they view the recording in full screen mode. It's best to avoid recording too small of an area because details will be fuzzy, or too large of an area because the larger file size will increase download and upload times. And again, you want to select the MP4 format so that you can embed the video in the classroom. Other formats might not embed. If you're looking for additional guidance on screen capture software, I encourage you to check out the audio-video feedback section of the teaching module in the Faculty Training Center classroom in Brightspace, which you should all be attached to. Including a quick 4.5-minute video on how to use Screencast-O-Matic for feedback videos. This was put together by Krista Nutter, who's our lead faculty for interior design, and this is actually the video that got me started working with Screencast-O-Matic, and I found it really helpful. Now, another resource you might not think of is lynda.com. Not only will you find tutorials on various screencast software, you can also search for tutorials on teaching techniques related to video content. Okay, let's move on to content and workflow. When you plan to record, strive to work in a quiet area, but don't be overly concerned about the occasional interruption. I don't restart recordings if my dog barks or my phone rings. I figures these distractions make me seem more human, and that's always important. And I can always pause the video and resume it if I need to. Now, I tend to download files as I go, but I know other faculty who prefer to download everything all at once, have all the student work in front of them, and make sure they have all of the references they need in place before they begin to record. Either way, it's a good idea to quickly review the work before you begin recording. So whether it's all of the students or one student at a time, you want to look at the work before you get started. This will allow you to get your thoughts in order and identify the areas you plan to discuss. When you begin recording, address the student by name. If I'm not sure how to pronounce the student's name, I'll ask them to correct me if I get it wrong. Again, we're looking to add the human element whenever possible. Start out by noting a few positives. Try to identify where they've demonstrated fundamental skills or have met specific learning outcomes, and explain how or why. Or at the very least, acknowledge their effort. Then point out 2 or 3 areas for improvement. Focus on the learning outcomes associated with the activity. If the student met the basic outcomes, then you can expand the discussion to include professional practice or other details, but you don't want to overwhelm them with too much at once. While it's often helpful to provide clear direction by sharing samples or even a demonstration in your video feedback, don't forget to look for opportunities to ask open-ended questions to encourage critical thinking. We don't want students to just follow along. We want them to think about what they're doing. But avoid making videos too long. It's best to keep them under 5 minutes. I find 2 to 3 minutes is optimal, both in terms of student attention span and in terms of download and upload times. You also want to check the sound and image quality. I always play back a few seconds of the recording before I save it. This is how I learned I need to face my PC laptop head on if I'm using the built-in mic. If I turn my head to look at my auxiliary screen, my voice fades. The built-in mic on my Mac is more forgiving. So make sure you're aware of any hardware quirks and strive to capture good sound and image quality. Now, when you're ready to save the recording, make sure you're saving in MP4 format. I can't emphasize that enough. So the video can be embedded in the classroom. Other formats might not work. Also, if you're using Screencast-O-Matic, you want to change the file name so it doesn't include a hashtag. A Screencast-O-Matic creates an automatic file name that has a hashtag in it, and for some reason a hashtag in the file name prevents the file from embedding. Even if you set it up to be embedded, it's going to appear as a link instead if it has a hashtag in the file name. Lastly, if you choose to save the file to a hosting site like YouTube, you want to make sure the privacy settings prevent the video from being viewed by the public. I believe you have to select Unlisted when saving to YouTube in Screencast-O-Matic. To create visually dynamic discussions, you want to embed video feedback instead of sharing it as a link. Assuming you use third-party software such as Screencast-O-Matic or Snagit, there are 2 ways to do this. Option 1, you save the video file to your desktop, then you select Insert Stuff, Upload File to add the content directly to the classroom. Option 2, you save the file to a hosting site such as YouTube or Screencast, then you select Insert Stuff, Embed Code to enter the embed code. Now, if you use Capture to create the video content, then you would select Capture under Insert Stuff. But as I mentioned before, Capture adds a few extra steps to the process, so I'm not recommending that particular software. I prefer option 1 when using Screencast-O-Matic. Since I keep my videos under 5 minutes, the saving and uploading goes pretty quickly. While YouTube combines the saving and uploading time, getting the embed code from YouTube seems to add an extra step. I also don't care for how YouTube adds movie previews at the end of the recordings, as the content may not always be appropriate for the classroom. Snagit offers a better solution because you can set it up to automatically copy the embed code to the clipboard when you upload the file to Screencast. So if you don't mind spending the money for the software, this is the quickest way to go. In either case, you want to make sure the video frame size fits within the discussion thread viewing area. It should be about 700 pixels wide. Option 1 also makes this step easy because you can specify the width when you upload the file, and so long as you have lock aspect ratio selected, it will automatically adjust the height. Then students have the option to view the video in full screen mode if they want to see it larger. If you use an embed code instead of uploading the file directly to the classroom, then you need to make sure the width and height specifications are appropriate in the code, which can be a little trickier to manage. Lastly, once you post the content, it's a good practice to play a few seconds of the video to make sure the file functions correctly. Again, you want to make sure the entire video frame is visible and the audio-video quality is good. Okay. That covers the basics. Let's take a look at a few additional concerns. If you're teaching a large class with 20 or so students, you may wish to provide group critiques to reduce the number of videos you need to create. However, it's best to limit each recording to discussing the work of no more than 2 or 3 students. Try to group students by common areas where improvement is needed. Now, when you take this approach, you will likely need to download and briefly review all of the submissions prior to recording. This is going to enable you to organize your thoughts and group students appropriately. When creating group critiques, it's still important to respond to each student individually, otherwise they may miss their critique. Now, you can direct them to where they need to go to view the group feedback post, or you can simply embed the same video in your response to each student in the group. You want to start out by addressing the student, saying hello, maybe a brief written sentence about their work, and then sharing the video with them. Faculty are not expected to provide video feedback on late submissions, but I encourage you to use your best judgment. Now, I'll typically provide video feedback if work is submitted just a day late. However, if it's more than a couple of days late, I generally go with a brief written response. Now, lastly, screen capture recordings are great when you want to be able to share samples, provide a quick demo, or point out specific details in student work while you provide a critique. However, there are instances when you just want to establish a sense of your presence and to create a more personal connection. This is especially true if you're teaching a technical course that doesn't have a lot of creativity involved. The video note option under Insert Stuff makes it incredibly easy to insert a headshot of you speaking just about anywhere in the classroom, including discussion threads, announcements, and gradebook feedback. There are a few things to keep in mind when you create video notes. First, make sure the lighting is good and the background is suitable. Be sure to dress appropriately. I go for comfortable yet professional. And try to look in the camera when you speak. I find it helpful to have a script on the screen that I can glance down at and then look back into the camera while I'm speaking. That covers the basics. Please direct any questions that you may have to your lead faculty member.